Good evening. It's nice to see a little bit more full of a house tonight. I'd like to welcome everybody to tonight's Canandaigua Town Board meeting. And I will call the meeting to order at this time. We will begin with a pledge of allegiance led by Councilwoman Carrie.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, Rebecca, can you call the roll, please?
Councilwoman Karen Smith.
Present.
Councilman Terry Femley.
Present.
Councilwoman Adeline Rudolph.
Present.
Supervisor Garrett Simpson.
Present with a phone going on. Sorry about that. All right, thank you. Was the board meeting properly advertised?
Yes.
All right. We do have written communications and they will be going around in the communications folder. If you want to take a look at those, I want to take a minute and recognize birthdays for this cycle. We have Megan Miller on the 22nd of November, Ryan Farini on the 24th, Jim Fletcher on the 29th. Happy birthday, Jim. Thank you. Stacy Richmond on December 9th and Shauna Boncheck on December 16th. Happy birthday.
Yeah.
Two birthday kids in here tonight. All right, brings us to our first privilege of the floor. Is there anyone who would be like to be heard at this time? Okay, see no hands. I see no hands online. We will now move to our presentations for the evening. We do have a couple presentations on, we have one on zoning. We have one on the transfer station, two on zoning and assessment, and one on the transfer station. So we will start with Donald Plant, the county tax director. Come on up, Donna. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. Good morning. Thank you all for having me. Let me put this down. I do have a PowerPoint. A lot of what I'm going to discuss is from my own personal experience. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. First of all, Heather Robson is our data collector. She is doing data collection for the town of Canandaigua. She's also assisting in the town of Farmington. My name is Donna LaPlante. I've been in this field for 20 years. I started out right in this town of Canandaigua, and boy, has it changed since I started. I started in '02, worked here as an assessor's aide for a couple of years, moved to the town of Farmington, was an assessor's aide for 2 more years. Then the assessor retired and they said, do you want the job? And I said, I'll give it a try. So I became the assessor in '06. Since becoming assessor in '06, I did my first townwide reval myself, and that was done in '07. I did that from start to finish, scared to death. It hadn't been done in several years, and I was kind of new, had a Racino. I valued the Racino myself. I valued commercial properties. I learned a lot from a couple assessors that worked in Monroe County. They kind of trained me. After being the assessor, I became deputy director in Ontario County in 2019. And Robin Johnson, who was the director for many years, retired, and I took her position over in 2020. I have done 7 revals. Like I said, my first one was in '07 for Farmington. In Farmington, I did them every other year. First year of doing it, I was noticing that I was raising people $100,000, and it hadn't been done in a while, and people were very upset. 150,000. The market was very strong in Farmington. People wanted the Victor schools, couldn't afford the Victor houses, so they were coming there. So the first year I had almost 1,000 informals, which was a quarter of the town. And informal meetings are done after the notices go out, typically by the end of March. So I had close to 1,000 informal meetings that I did myself. I will never forget one man coming in. He was an older gentleman, came in with a cane. He yelled at me, was so upset. He had went up 100,000. He's one of those 100,000 people. And I gave him all the sales. I think transparency is the key. And him and I had a nice chat, and he goes at the end of it, you know what? I guess I've been underassessed all these years. And he didn't even go to grievance. Transparency is the key. The market is strong. Even now, post-COVID, it's still strong. I know the interest rates have gone up. The number of sales has decreased, but not the values. I haven't looked as much in Canandaigua yet. I have looked in Farmington a little bit, and I'm not doing our job at the county. We are not the assessor. The assessor will be speaking to you. What we're doing is doing all the data collection, the sales, the model. We're also doing the commercial properties and giving them to the assessor, who has the ultimate say. So this presentation is going to go over a lot of things. It's going to be brief, but any questions you have, one thing to remember is you can always, we're going to give the assessor all the sales that we could have chosen from. And our goal is to have everything to him by the end of March. And then from that point, he will look at the values. Typically, the notices go out right around the beginning of April, and then he'll set up informal meetings, but I won't step on his toes based on what he's going to discuss. So that's an overview. Happy to answer questions when we're done with this. Some of the stuff in this PowerPoint does not pertain to revals. It's just in there. I didn't take it out. But any questions as we go along, please let me know. I'm going to make this super brief so you can go on to your meeting. So one thing, and Heather, what do I always say? What's my,
You're going to keep it fair and equitable.
the goal of any reval is, I'm going to give an example before I go into this. And I can only speak for Farmington because that's the revals that I've done, but there's like 12 neighborhoods in there. Some neighborhoods, and it's going to be the same here with Lakefront, maybe appreciating different than Laura Lane or whatever. I can't remember a lot of the streets here, but some neighborhoods within a town are increasing significantly. Some are not increasing as much. Your current equalization rate, I believe, I get the 86%. So why not just go in and raise everybody 15% and call it a day? Well, that's not fair and equitable. The reason it's not is houses on the lake may be increasing at a different value than houses on Laura Lane. Ranch houses may be increasing at different values than raised ranches. In Farmington, raised ranches and split levels were not increasing as much as colonials, contemporaries, and ranches. So even within the town, it depends on the house style. So it would be very easy to trend 15%. It's not fair to anyone. The goal of any reval is make sure no one pays any more or any less than their fair share of taxes. I sure don't want to pay any more, and I don't want you paying any more or less. If everyone just pays their fair share, it's going to be
Fair and equitable.
there you go. I drilled this into her head. So we're going to go over the PowerPoint briefly. Again, you can all read it. Just going to hit the high points. And if I see any other story or something I want to add, this is just property tax. How property taxes, it's a very basic formula. It's not that basic, but it just gives a general overview. There are different, as we all know, different taxing jurisdictions, town, school, county. Equalization rate. If there wasn't shared of a school district or there wasn't shared county, it wouldn't matter what the equalization rate is because the town, everyone, equalization rate equalizes what you're paying into Canandaigua schools or county taxes. It equalizes. West Bloomfield just did a revale they're at 100%. I know there's got to be some in the school district in West Bloomfield that are in Canandaigua. So their tax rate is going to be different. Yours, because you haven't done it, is going to be higher per se. So equalization rate just gets everyone on a level playing surface. So that's the different taxing jurisdictions we talked about. And this is important. Assessments are they're a part of the tax calculation, but the tax levy is controlling. But as a property owner, the only thing I can control is my assessment. I could come to a town board meeting, I could come to a school board meeting, a county board of supervisors meeting, try to have a say, but my house, the only thing I can control is the assessment by going in and talking to the assessor and saying, hey, how'd you come up with this? It's too high, whatever. Did you know this? Did you know that? So assessments do play a part, and they're the part that you as the taxpayer can control. The next page talks about equalization rates, as we talked about 86%. And two houses exactly the same, sold on the same day for the same price. Town assesses at 100%, market value and assessment is 100%. It's a little bit different if your equalization rate, it gives a couple examples. Properties are in same town, same school district, same county, no exemption, both will pay the same amount of taxes. Properties are in a different town, one town assesses at 100, another town assesses at 50. And this is kind of what I discussed earlier. In order to ensure that both properties contribute their fair share of the property tax, the property in town B, which is the 50%, will be equalized before apportioned. So basically the tax rate in that town B would be double because they're at 50%. So why do we need this revale? Fair and equitable. Equity, that is around my office. That's all. Yes. You hear a little more than that, but it's a common thing. And in Canandaigua, the last revale was completed, I believe, in 2018. If we assume that everyone was assessed at 100% of market value at that time, then the assessments were, you guys are going to be going home dreaming about fair and equitable, but then the assessments were fair and equitable. We all know how the market's been. All you got to do, especially we're using sales right now in this revale from July of 2020 through July of 2022. So people are going to say, well, during COVID, well, we're also using more recent sales. There's a line, and I believe this gets to it. There's a line in the sand. That line is drawn at valuation date for a 2023 revale. It will be July 1st of 2022. So the sales that we're using here in Canandaigua will be from July 1st, 2020 during the COVID time to July 1st, 2022. I also follow the sales and I haven't seen any, like I said, I've seen the number of sales in this town, basically throughout the county. It's similar. The 7 or 8% market has pushed some people to be not able to buy, but the ones that are buying, I'm still hearing of bidding wars of 15 to 20 people for a house. So the ones that are in the market that can buy are still paying high prices. Talked about, it says not all properties will appreciate or depreciate at the same rate. Talked about that. That's that ranch to a split level, even within the same town. Again, I haven't looked at lakefront and stuff. Heather's working on the model for that. But even within the town, even just, different neighborhoods, within different subdivisions are gonna increase or decrease. Location. Some locations like lakefront, Lakeview, highly desirable. We all know that. Some want to be close to the city. And as communities age or the average size of smaller ranch styles are definitely, I would say, one of the most, if not the most popular is ranches. I want a ranch. So I'm going to now I'm getting older. I'm going to go from my colonial to my ranch. Market value is driven, I discussed the interest rates that we all know are going up, but again, that doesn't mean the sales prices are going down. It's just taking some people out of the market. That's what drives market value. And I talked about different types of properties in different locations will increase or decrease at a different pace. If you don't do this for a long time, it's really going to become inequitable, and it's going to become inequitable within your own town. If your neighborhood is going up in value and other ones are being flat, it's just not fair. And that's why the town of Canandaigua will be doing a 2023 reval to make sure it's fair and equitable, to make sure that if your neighborhood is not appreciating at the same pace as another neighborhood in the town, we're not just going to trend it and go 14% or whatever to get to that 100%. The assessor does not set market value. He interprets the market. He doesn't set it. He interpret it by looking at sales, valid arm's length sale, willing buyer, willing seller offered on the open market. Then those market trends are applied through the town right now. Like I said, we're working on the Canandaigua model. We've gotten some of it done. Some neighborhoods are trickier. When the model is done, mass appraisal isn't like if you go to the bank and you refi and you get an appraisal on your house, you'll see pluses and minuses. Mass appraisal with 5,000 parcels in a short length of time, you can't do that. So we rely on our model. If the model is good, based on the sales, you kind of figure out, okay, it's a long drawn out thing, but you have to rely on that model to say, okay, looking at these sales, these have a fireplace, this doesn't, houses are similar. So that fireplace might be worth 3,000. You put that into the model. So you put what you think are what the values of certain features or amenities are into this model. And then you have to get it's COD under 12 is what the state wants. We shoot for 10. When that model is good, it spits out, it's called comp sheets, comparable sheets. It'll have your home, 3 different houses. The assessor would look at that and say, oh, I don't like those, and he can reject them. Typically 75% are rejected, and then he goes in and picks different houses. But that model is what we're at this point. So as long as that's good, it makes it pretty easier. So that's what it's talking about. Do you know your market value? I think the reason why I love my job so much is I just love real estate. If I wasn't doing this, I'd be a real estate person. There's no doubt. In fact, I looked into that as a second job. I love watching the market. I go on realtor.com for fun. So that shows my life. So I've always enjoyed this, but that's something I advise everyone here to do that lives in the town, because we know this is coming. We will be giving Paul the sales, but look at him yourself too. And you have every right to say, you come in once Paul sends out the notices, you could come in and talk to him and say, hey, can I see the sales? You could really do that at any time. I was an open book. I'm sure he would be too. I'd have residents coming in all the time, and transparency. It's what it's all about. Here's the sales I could have picked. These are the 3 I picked. The assessor's value is per state law. The assessor's value is always presumed correct. That's the state law. That's not the town law or county law. It's your job as a person. If you think he puts $1 million on your house, you don't think that house is worth $1 million, you've got to prove him wrong. And the way you do that is through sales. Or if you have issues in your home, you could bring in pictures, not necessarily maintenance issues, but you have a foundation, whatever you have. So, but his value at this reval, when you get that notice, the beginning of April or end of March, that's the value that the state says is correct. The way you're going to prove it, if you don't agree with it, is getting sales. Look at the market now, start looking at it now. You could go on realtor.com. Not all of you have access to the MLS, but Realtor.com is a good site. If you have commercial properties or want to look at a commercial property, LoopNet is good. So we talked about that. I talked about the sales we're going to be using in this reval, which are July 2020 to July 2022. And we're looking at valuation date as of July 1st, 2022. So when you get that notice, this is again, state law. A lot of this stuff, everyone's like, well, why? State law. It's, it's what every assessor in the state, no matter what. So we're going back. When you get this notice in April, we're back 9 months. Those are the sales. So you can, ask for sales from July 20 to July 22. Start doing your homework now, because it'll be March before you know it. Typically the way I did, and Paul will talk about what he's going to do, but I would send you out the notice. If you didn't agree, set up an appointment, come in, talk to me, I'd give you the sales. And if you still didn't agree, it's not over. Again, his value is still presumed correct, but you could go to small claims. $30 filing fee. If you win it, you get back. If you get over 50%, you get your $30 filing fee back. So basically, the next thing you're going to be seeing is those notices. And we don't need to talk about exemptions or anything, because that doesn't really pertain to this. This was kind of a overview on just about everything 101. I just didn't get a new one. Let's see here. So it talks about assessment change towards the end. Assessment change notices required by 510. They'll be mailed out at the end of March. It'll tell you your old assessment was 200,000. Your new assessment is 300,000. Doesn't talk about taxes. There used to be a time where it would say, okay, based on this $100,000 change in your assessment, this was back in 07 when I was doing those. It would say your tax rate, even though you raised 100,000, your taxes are only going to go up X. It never worked that way. So the only time those type of notices that talk about your tax liability and how it could impact would be if it was under an 85% equalization rate, and they're never right. And then people used to plan on that. So the state says, okay, we won't make you do that all the time, but if you go under an 85% equalization rate, which thankfully the town of Canandaigua was not, you have to send those notices out. So, but it'll say your old assessment was A, your new assessment's B, and then Paul will, however, he's gonna set that up, his informal meetings. Grievance day is the next step. That'll be May 23rd. Can't be postmarked by May 23rd. Just make sure you're here by May 23rd. The next page is Paul and Michelle's information. This is my office. Again, my name is Donna LaPlante. I'm always available if anyone has any questions. Best way to reach me is through email, because I'm in a lot of meetings. But you could call this number and I'm happy to return your call when I get a chance. That was my presentation as an overview in a nutshell. Just do your homework, and fair and equitable is the key. That's what the town wants. That's what we at the county wants. And that's what Paul wants. But our place in this is to just do the data collection, give what we feel is fair, and Paul and Michelle make the final decisions. Does anyone have any questions?
You said best way to reach you is email. What's your email address?
Donna.LaPlante, LaPlant at OntarioCountyNY.gov.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
You're welcome. All right, now I'd like to invite up next presentation, and because I forgot to mention this in the beginning, you will need, Councilwoman Rudolph will be excused at approximately 7:15 if we're still going at that point for a very important commitment that her daughter is involved in. So she needs to be there for that. Now I'd like to invite up Paul and Michelle for their presentation at this time.
I think I said it all, so I'll just go sit down. This is pretty much what I'm going to be talking about. Thank you. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Paul Arndt. I've been the assessor in this fair town since late April of this year. Prior to being the assessor here, I was a 7th District Small Claims Assessment Review Hearing Officer for 4 years. And before that, I was the assistant assessor for the town of Greece for quite a few years, and then the assessor in Gates. I enjoyed Donna's one story about the gentleman saying, walking out of the informal review saying how she had changed his mind. I had kind of the opposite experience. I'm sure Doug and Michelle have already heard this story, but I had a gentleman I did almost all of the informal reviews for Greece. And I had a gentleman who didn't like what I was saying to him. And he got up and came around the table, got right up into my face and said, the next time I see you, I'm going to beat the blankety blank out of you. There was a panic button on the windowsill in the back of me. So I backed up to the panic button and I pushed it. Nobody came. Finally, the gentleman left. And when he left, I went to the building department who was in charge of coming to my rescue. And I asked them why didn't anyone come to the buzzer went off? Why didn't anybody come? And it turns out that the young man who was on duty at that particular time, it was his first day on the job, and he didn't know what the buzzer meant. So anyway, I'm not going to read my statement here word for word, because basically Donna has did a great job of explaining a lot of this, but Michelle and I have been given the responsibility of doing a good portion of the town, doing field reviews on a good portion of the town, mostly waterfront properties. What not only does that allow me to learn about the town of Canandaigua, it also fulfills one of the state's requirements. That requirement being that in a reval, you are supposed to look at the properties that are being revalued. What we do is a curbside inspection, drive by the house, take a good look at it if we can. And if we see anything in that curbside inspection that is not in the property file, we add it to the file. First, we check to make sure that it's not in the building in the building files for permits and things of that nature. And then if it's not, it gets added to the file and a value is added to the property for whatever that might have been. Let's say we drive by a house and we see that there's a detached garage on the property that's not in the file. Well, the detached garage then gets added to the file, and an appropriate value is added to that particular file. While these, Michelle and I have pretty much finished our field work, and now we are simply awaiting the arrival of the model from the county, which Donna and Heather have been working very hard on getting for us. And as soon as that comes in, then what we will be doing is using the information in that model. Well, let me go back here just a little bit. Let's see. The models provide, as Donna said in her presentation, the models provide sales data on market and sales trends in the areas regarding things like different style houses, different age houses, locational differences, and amenities that add value, such as decks, pools, garages, barns, and things of that nature. The models are then installed into the town's assessment department's computers, which have access to the state's database. I won't bore you with the complexity of the process, but the model assists the assessment staff in determining what each property's fair and equitable
I like that.
market value should be. As I indicated, Michelle and I have completed all of our assigned field work, and as soon as the models come in, we will start the next process. The next process, as Donna went over, the first step is doing the informal reviews. After the notices have been sent out, people are informed of what their new assessment is scheduled to be. They make an appointment and they come in and they talk to me. And hopefully they have sufficient information, because as Donna said, by state law, the assessor's value, the value the assessor has placed on the property is correct until the homeowner proves to the assessor that the value is incorrect. If we can come to an agreement, fine. If we, then that's called a stipulated agreement, where we would change the assessment officially in the roll. If we can't come to an agreement, then the next step is for the homeowner to go to the Board of Assessment Review, which meets on the fourth Tuesday of May. And if they can't convince the Board of Assessment Review that the assessment is incorrect, then the third step is the small claims assessment review. The homeowner would go to the county, file a small claims filing to go and see the county would appoint. I'm sorry, it's not the county, it's the 7th Judicial District would appoint a hearing officer who sets up an appointment with the homeowner and the assessor. They meet, and the hearing officer's responsibility is to listen to both sides and make a decision as to what he or she feels the assessment should be. Whatever the hearing officer decides, the assessor has to abide by it. The homeowner does not have to. The homeowner can go to Supreme Court, but from my experience, that happens very, very infrequently. That's pretty much the procedure. So let's talk about some numbers that have been coming up. There is a very well-known real estate company that has indicated the 2022 median sales to the end of October for the county is between 10% and 11%. The state released figures a couple of weeks ago on our county, indicating a 9.2% increase in the median sales prices from 2019 to 2020, and a 5.6% increase between from 20 to 21. When you take this into consideration with the 10 to 11% increase from 20 to 21 to 22, it would indicate a 15.3% increase has occurred between 2019 and 2022. Now, we do not have the model increases available yet for Canandaigua, but the increases for our neighboring Farmington, using the model that we have been given, shows increases closer to 30%, the 30% range, which is considerably more than the 15%, twice the 15% that I just quoted. We must take into consideration the fact that the state's median increase figures take into consideration the entire county, not just Canandaigua. And there remain some areas of the county with sales prices much lower than ours. This is going to skewer some of those numbers. This could easily account for the difference between the state's figures and those projected by the Farmington model. Let's also discuss the topic that makes Canandaigua unique, and that is the waterfront properties. There are 377 residential properties in Canandaigua classified as being waterfront. That would be approximately 7.4% of the total of 5,042 properties in the town. Waterfront footage is an integral part of the waterfront properties assessments. Within the past year, Doug had 2 professional appraisal companies give us an opinion of value of waterfront footage values for some of the higher waterfront properties. Their opinions came in at around $13,000 per front foot. That value can drop depending on topography, such as shallow water, lack of beaches, or cliffs leading from a house to the water. I recently did a survey using a small sample of homes that would normally be considered having higher end water frontage. Their current assessed values for those frontages averaged approximately $9,600 per front foot. If the front foot appraisal's opinion of values, appraisals of the same type properties is accurate, and after studying the appraisals, I see no reason to doubt them, the waterfront properties could be seeing upwards of a 30% increase in their land values alone. Add to that the fact that these same properties have a somewhat low overall value per square foot of around $480 per square foot, when typically homes like that are $500, $550 per square foot, would indicate that Canandaigua lakefront properties could be seeing some hefty increases in their assessments next spring. What those increases would be right now is not certain. And I have to await the installation of the model before I can start getting more information on that. Does anyone have anything to ask me?
Paul, before you and Michelle leave, Michelle also, just I think it's important for everybody to know, Michelle tracks for us the sales, and that's what I'm showing you here on the screen, sales versus assessed value.
Mhm.
And you can see some of those are even 100%, 90% over the assessed value currently. So there's a lot of work to do for Paul and Michelle and Donna and everybody, but we have real data that we're using.
Thank you very much.
Any other board members have questions?
No.
All right, thank you very much for your
Mhm.
presentations, everyone. Here, you can stay if you want, it's up to you. So.
It's like, I'm
There you
out
go. There you go, good choice. All right, now, last but not least, the most exciting time of the night, the reason why everybody's here, we're gonna talk about garbage. And Councilman Fennelly, the Planning and Public Works Committee, for a presentation on the proposed new transfer station.
Make it very quick. Deadline has to leave. So we have, we have it up here. There's also a large copy up here that's a lot easier to see. We have Mr. Hoteling here who put together the concept. This is nothing that is definite. It's an idea sketch what the transfer station could be in the future. Counts for everything that we currently collect in a much more efficient manner. This facility would be is designed in such a way that people would be driving through, stay in their vehicles, materials would be removed from their vehicles and drive out again. There are some people, some communities in our area here that have a system like this. Victor has it, Manchester has it. We've seen those facilities and how they operate. I, for one, didn't believe that they could be that efficient and that quick, but they are. People are in and out very quickly. And everybody in the room here that has used our transfer facility has seen that on some occasions you're all by yourself. Other occasions you get 50 neighbors out there with you in cars and trucks and people crossing in front of you. And it's kind of a chaotic situation. So for a number of reasons, we took this on as a project to look at what we could do in the future. One of the factors that we have no control over and that we have a lot of questions about is what the county is actually going to do with the landfill. That we don't know. the County Board of Supervisors commissioned a study a couple of years ago that indicated kind of towns taking on certain aspects of waste collection. Some towns would collect everything, some would collect only a couple of municipal solid waste perhaps. And that didn't go anyplace. And we're still waiting for direction from the county. I think everybody has probably read that the town of Seneca said we'd like to see this thing gone in 2028 when the contract with Casella is up. At this point, we don't know what's going to happen. So this facility has been designed, the concept designed in such a manner that we could use the existing equipment we had. However, if we had to truck stuff farther distance, requiring larger vehicles, it could be accommodated in this scheme. So I'll let Greg take it over here.
Thank you.
Name down in the lower right-hand corner. So
Oh, it is, okay. Eesh. All right, thank you.
Don't touch the mic.
Yeah, it's like it's sort of like a hair clip. Anyways, so we start off looking at this transfer station. Yeah, we can do the blowout so people can kind of get an idea where we are. It's basically just to the east of Town Hall and the highway facility. You know, the town purchased this property some time ago, not because we were going to put the transfer station here, but it just became available, and it was a good, prudent choice by this town to pick that up. Now that we have it, we've been able to look at this transfer stations in several different iterations. I think we've kicked this around at the Public Works Committee for probably 4 or 5 months, maybe even longer. Yeah. So, but it started and stopped and started and stopped. But we've finally been able to advance the concept to something that's, I think, at least palatable to the Public Works Committee, primarily because one of the things we were trying to achieve was to improve flow and safety on the site. As Terry was kind of elucidating to, traffic moves all in one direction. So everything moves about this in a counterclockwise motion. So traffic will be coming down from Town Hall. So the entrance would be off of 5 and 20, but it would come down past Town Hall. And then it would break down once we get down low enough past the pond, it branches off into 3 separate areas. So obviously what's not on here is all the wayfinding that would probably be required to help people navigate this more elaborate site. But generally speaking, we have Route 1, which is basically a loop for bypass to get to either the C&Ds and construction debris and metals, which is building 2. And then there's route number 2, which would be the general waste and recycling. This would probably be the most predominantly used route. That route is actually, there's 2 lanes, and there's room in this run from basically here up for about 60 vehicles to queue to get into the building. The intent here was to provide as much queuing for vehicles as possible to prevent any potential backup, you know, up into the Town Hall area and out to 5 and 20. And then route number 3 serves as a bypass to get to the mulch and debris area or yard waste kind of stuff. So the first building is the, all right, so that building is the recycling and general waste that's set up with 4 rollies on each side, meaning there's an ability to unload. There's 4 separate containers for recycling, 4 separate containers for general waste. Now, not all containers will be in use at the same time. It's really meant to be able to fill one and then move on to the next one without any real delay. The public enters this building through a ramp section. The center part of this building is elevated. The rollies sit down below. There's compactors on each on the general waste. I don't know if there's other compactors on the recycle too. So there's compactors on all of them. So generally, in this case, people would pull in, town employees would then grab the materials and throw them into the appropriate bins. What we found, at least in looking at some other communities, that this process is actually more efficient and it's clearly safer to not have people getting in and out of cars. And one of the big things about this design that I like the most is that we don't have to back up to pretty much do anything. Everything is one way in and really one way out. The rollies there exit off the ends. There will be a small break room and bathroom in the upper corner, just because of the remoteness of this site, and town staff. It would make sense for them to give them someplace to warm up and to use the restroom. Building 2, as I said before, is C&D and metals. This one's built a little bit differently because we were anticipating probably a larger vehicle than just the standard rolly. But this one is kind of the same thing. There's a ramp section to get to the middle part of that building. And then these will be able to exit off the sides. So they pull in this way, they go out that way. All this in here, throw that way. This one's also conceptually has some scales on it. If we get into the realm of paying per ton for C&D or metals. Again, everything re-entrains in the outside loop. To get out, then there's a secondary access from the back of house from the highway. So the idea here was to try to create a system where there was like a front of house for the public and then a back of house for the town. If anyone follows that idea, but everything is basically set so that large vehicles can make the sweeps. A lot of the radii, you see these are all beefed up. It's all meant for large vehicles. Not that the public would be moving large vehicles, but the town could be moving large vehicles. So wanted to make sure we had the appropriate layoff for that. Stormwater management facility down closer to the road. This is generally the low point of the property. And we've purposely took this and tucked this as far back as we can off the road, just to reduce the visual impact from the road. But in this scenario, everything's basically enclosed as well. So we're not anticipating, odors or any of those types of objectionable things, being that we're relatively close to a subdivision over here to the north and east. So I think that's all I've got. I think so. Any questions? Oh, I got one.
2. First is what's the slope on the entry road that comes in from town hall to the site?
We're definitely not there yet. This is just concept. So
But it's not like a.
we haven't broken it down into a full design.
But it's
or
not like a
relatively
huge
elevated.
slope change that you're aware of.
I mean, there is a grade change from town hall down to this pond. And then, like I said, we'll need to ramp up
Okay.
into these buildings anyways, because we have to get the depth for the rollies.
Yeah.
Otherwise you'd be throwing your trash like over the.
The other question, if you could scroll down to the bigger blow up. The only thing I was concerned about is if somebody's coming and dumping their recycling and general waste, and then they want to go pick up mulch. I think you need another re-entry into the mulch area under like the brown circle there.
Yeah, I think you sort of do, because there's like actually a channel inside the mulch area. You can see this like.
Yeah, but if you dropped off your trash first, how would you get there without leaving the whole?
Here, and we'll come back in.
Oh, you can enter in there? Okay.
In here.
Oh, I thought they had to enter from route number 3.
No, that's, well, that back, that back where everyone gets re-entrained, you still have the option to come. That was one of the questions that we had at Public Works, was how to get back in there. So
So you're
we
not,
basically, you have the ability to go either way.
you're not assessing it from this road?
You're assessing it from this.
Well,
And that's
Well,
what.
no, this is this road, but once you get
Either or.
here, right, so you go here.
You have a couple
So you
I
can
can
come
take
turn
this
here
route
and go in
here, so if I go here, I can come all the way around,
Yeah,
come in here.
but I didn't recognize the center there.
Yeah, there's an internal, the darker area is kind of an internal circulation for just the mulch.
If somebody comes with construction debris as well as household waste, there's not a way to get back in without going back up.
Yeah, we discussed about some of that, but the reality is that most times the C and D waste comes in on a trailer more than anything else. And it was such an infrequent vehicle movement. We felt it was fine to leave it that way.
You could also do household and then hit the construction.
Right. I mean, if you want to do C and D first, then that's your prerogative.
Yeah,
But if
but
you,
you could.
but you
go
could
through
do
the
your household waste and then do your
bit
C and D.
And then go through the construction.
It is
Yeah.
different. It's a change. But I think it's still a betterment because I think it's still safer all the way around.
Do you have any data on how many people have private haulers versus people like me who go there every Saturday?
I think the county has something like that, right? Wasn't it like it was some ridiculous amount too, right? It was
It's
pretty
high.
skewed.
About
Not for here, but for
Right.
people that use the private haulers, it's pretty high. It's like 80-20 or ish, somewhere in there.
So you could adjust to more people bringing their own garbage in.
Well, there's been discussion, a lot of discussion, until the county make a decision on the actual landfill where they're going. There was discussion of, we could be a regional location, and the discussion of the spoken hub where certain towns go to certain locations. We're thinking of the future the best we can with the information we have now. So could this change again? It may. I mean, it's tough to give you a good answer where the next 5 years will be.
Yeah, the difficult thing for us, and we've been talking about, well, we looked at this originally 5 or 6, 7 years ago when we
did the highway garage.
We did the whole campus here. We looked at town hall for future expansion, the highway garage, you remember the old one that we had, and transfer station. At that time, the one that had the most need was the highway garage, because the facility was just in really bad shape, not safe. So we've been talking about this for quite a few years. The county trying to get clear direction for what the county's going to do is very difficult, to say the least.
So I would, if I can speak to that, I wish I had more information from the as far as what they're gonna look like. I have the same amount of information that you have. It hasn't been released from the committee yet, as far as where they are. With the, and I anticipate more movement now with Seneca voting not to expand the landfill into their adjoining property. And because of financial and other reasons, there's a lot at stake if the county continues to operate the landfill after the 2028 Casella getting out of it. I don't see it being feasible, my own personal opinion. I don't see it being feasible, practical for it to continue in operation after 2028 because of the risk that the county would be assuming. That doesn't help. As soon as more information comes out, we'll get it as soon as we can out there. But as far as what each area is going to be, don't know yet. But I do know that with Seneca's vote and with that decision going forward, I imagine now that that isn't hanging over our heads, we will be voting eventually on what we do at the county, and that'll give more direction.
Well, it's
So
gonna
it's still
be,
more hurry up and wait until that vote happens.
It's going to be interesting because Seneca Meadows lifespan is not any longer than
No,
Ontario County.
no,
And what's the one up here? Airport High Acres.
High Acres.
They have problems up there too.
Right.
So that's why, I mean, part of the design incorporated that thought process that right now we have takes, one of these roll off containers over to you know, with recycling or municipal solid waste or construction debris, whatever, you know, on the flatbed that we have, but we may have to have some other larger vehicles, you know, and this would accommodate that, so. And it also has room in the building that we don't know what the future is going to bring. Some of the facility, well, the Manchester facility, they have a pay-as-you-throw program where you pay a certain amount for, based on the weight of what you're throwing away, 15 cents a pound or something like that. We're not advocating that at this point, but there is provision, there is space in these buildings to do something like that if we had to put in scales to, you know, calculate the volume or the weight that somebody is disposing. So, but there's still a lot of unknowns, and this is not something that's going to be happening in the next year or perhaps 2 years. We don't know. I mean, until we get that word from the county, the word comes from on high.
Yeah, and it's still within a 5-year window. That'll, you know, that drop dead date.
But we all know government moves at glacial
Very quickly,
speeds.
very quickly.
Anyways, I think this is, again, the concept, I think the whole point for this coming to the town board was to either hear endorsement of the plan. So that maybe we could consider taking the next steps. At some point, we'd want to move from concept into more of a preliminary design phase at some point. So obviously at this board's discretion.
I mean, as far as meeting the needs of what we have going forward, and it is adaptable in case things change. I mean, if things change drastically, then they'll change drastically for everyone.
No,
But I think this meets the best of our needs. It does give me some trauma having gone to Clifton Park and their roundabouts last weekend. I am having a little bit of trauma right now looking at that. Like I'd get in and never get out. But other than that,
Hey, kids, there's Big Ben.
well, Ben suggested that the hours that we're not using it for waste collection, we have a go-kart track.
I would support that right now. We can take a vote.
Another source of revenue. You know.
You got it.
Speaking of sources of revenue, is there the ability to adapt this, or is it usable for garbage trucks?
As in like private garbage trucks?
Yeah,
Not really, because I mean, because of the way they transfer the waste, we don't have that ability here.
but
No, this is,
Hire a whole different 360 for that.
yeah,
I
if
think
we're
it does.
taking, yeah,
which was my other question. Well, you might be able to expand a municipal permit to do it. Does the existing permit,
no, it has to be changed. It'd have to be changed for this. This will be a new permit,
okay, it'd be the permit, not a modification.
right?
Does the town own the land that's adjacent to the intersection? What I'm getting at, could we have an exit at the light?
Not really.
Actually, not going in and out,
There's actually a right-of-way restriction
Yeah.
you do it?
in this area where the median is, sorry.
It extends this way, so see where this curb cut is?
That's as early as we could possibly, actually, I think that's even earlier than what the state wants. So I think it's supposed to be further to the west by what the state wanted, but there's basically there's a blackout for curb cuts in that area by the state. So
So you couldn't have it in and out.
yeah, not from there.
They all gotta go through.
They don't want us making those types of turning movements in that location. That's why we went with, use the existing curb cut for the town. Plus it gives you more ability to queue. The whole point was to try to prevent queuing up onto the state road.
All right, Greg, Terry, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Greg.
Thanks, Greg. You go. Go ahead.
Well, you can.
You have one done.
You're excused.
It's for a pie, guys. It's for a pie. Relax.
Sure doesn't seem like
Yeah, take care.
Terry,
The money was going the other way.
Yeah.
Right.
Terry, do we have any handle on by households, how many households in the town have a hang tag as
Yeah, it's
opposed
about
to.
2,500, I think, isn't it?
Where we got about
What percentage of the households?
I don't know what the percentage is, but we have about 33, a little over 3,300 given out for the past 2 years. But you can get 2 per household, so it
Yeah,
doesn't
that's the
say,
other problem.
we don't know. I mean, we could take out the duplicates and get a number. But
I guess it would be an interesting thing to find out
We've-
how many households. And of course, it changes in the summertime, so it's really busy.
Yeah, it's a variable thing.
Yeah.
Some people have permits that have Casella pick up at their homes, but they have the permit for, yard waste and, be able to come in and dispose of, large things, an old couch or chair or something like that. So,
Well, we have more to talk about.
Yeah.
So let's, we'll move on from, it's an enthralling topic, but we'll move on for right now. Okay, this takes us to we have 2 public hearings for tonight. The first one is on a draft local law to amend town code chapter 220-33 incentive zoning to authorize the town board to utilize incentive zoning in any town zoning district and to clarify options for payment in lieu of amenity. And at this time, I will declare the public hearing open. Is there anyone who would like to be heard at this time? I do not see anybody. One last time, anyone like to be heard on this public hearing at this time? Any board members like to be heard? Okay, so at this time, I will declare the public hearing closed. On the second public hearing, and this is on a draft local law to amend town code chapter 220-33.1 scenic view shed overlay district to clarify the minimum lot size within the district. And at this time, I declare the public hearing open. Is there anyone who would like to be heard at this time?
Yeah, Gary, are you proposing that within this few districts?
Rocco, can you come up to the, do you mind coming up to the people online? And then if you can just state your name and address for the record, and then people online can hear you. Thank you.
Rocco Venezia, 5120 Laurel Lane, Canandaigua. So my question is this, we're talking about a view shed, right? So if you can see it from the lake, is that the criteria or is it?
There's the specific region that is in the view shed. It's a specific map that we have of the view shed overlay district.
Okay.
We've had multiple consultants come in and do multiple tests
Okay.
and balloon floats and all.
And that's
sorts-
available, that drawing?
Yes, and all sorts of other things. So this just clarifies that within that district, that 1 acre or minimum 20 acres.
So so this thing would probably encompass a number of zoning districts. It would encompass probably the AR1, AR2, maybe the R130. But in any of the districts, the criteria would be that we have to have an acre if we're within this view shed. Is that the?
Or whatever the minimum, whatever the lot size is within that district.
minimum of an acre.
Okay, so whichever is great.
So if I'm in R120?
Whichever is greater of that. I
Okay,
misspoke on
so
that.
if I'm in R120, I have to have an acre.
Yes,
But if I'm in AR2, I have to have 2 acres because I'm in AR2.
because that's the
But
greater number.
I can do a conservation subdivision within AR2 to get a smaller lot.
No, but that's not what the proposal is on the table. That, the conservation subdivision is not allowed in the scenic view shed overlay, but that's already in place. That's already in local law.
So inside of these view sheds, the conservation subdivision gets thrown out?
Yes,
Why is that?
that's the current law.
That's already in place. That's existing law,
But I've done conservation subdivision in AR2.
not since the.
Not
scenic
since,
view shed
yeah,
overlay
if it wasn't in the, if,
Okay.
at this point, if you were to come back and if it was in the view shed, it wouldn't happen. But if it happened before either outside of the view shed or before that was established. then
Okay.
we're able to do that.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else like to be heard at this time? Anyone online? Any board members have any questions or comments? Okay, at this time, I declare the public hearing closed. Reports of town officials. Jim, do you have any report?
Yeah, not really, but I do want to speak to the board. I have a As you know, we've been replacing the water meters throughout the town as they age. And have a resident on Middle Cheshire Road who would not like her meter changed due to she can't provide a medical doctor's prescription of why she can't be around electronics, just that she doesn't want one. I said to her that per policy that every house will have a meter either inside the house or you have a meter pit installed outside the house and have a meter there. If the meter pit was to be installed outside the house, she felt that she should not have to pay for it because she feels that her condition should exempt her from having one in her house. I explained to her that's not how it works in the town, but I would ask the town board the following questions. One, in my opinion, the meter that we currently use should be installed and to be read once a month. Okay, if that option is viable, that a meter pit be installed, but she would have to pay for the said meter pit, not be exempt from the water meter pit in front of her house. And two was what she would like to know if she could just take a picture of it and send it to us. I'm recommending a meter pit be placed in front of the house and that the occupant pay the town for the said meter pit to be installed so that the electronic device was outside of her house.
What's the cost?
The
About,
cost of the meter pit is about $1,000, we need another $800 on top of it for our parcel, $1,800.
Jim, does she have electronics in her home at this point?
She does, she calls me on a cell phone, she does use the internet from time to time.
And this wouldn't be any different than,
I can't give you that good, I'm not,
right, we don't know
I don't know.
any more specifics, and there's nothing,
But I don't want to set a precedent by
right, and there's no,
starting to do additional work
right,
if someone doesn't agree with what the town's doing.
Right. And I mean, and there's nothing to stand on, I mean, there's nothing where there is a definite issue.
All I have is from a physician's assistant of an office in Arundecoit that's on a 2-page letter about why it would not be a good idea, but nothing in detail of the condition.
Okay.
So,
when do you have to know by?
oh, I'd like to know today if I could.
I'd
There's
be-
nothing in New York State law that restricts anybody from a smart meter in their home, so I looked into that. Firstly, I think we took the meter pit out front and charged the individual for it, and we go forward.
I would be concerned about you entering an agreement for picture taking or whatever it may be, and the implication that may have for both your office and future residents if she were to sell the property. So that would be concerning.
Good points.
Yeah, and I worry about the precedent, because then anybody could, and not to make light of anything that might be existing, but then anyone who might just not want something read.
Correct.
Which does make it a lot more convenient and effective and accurate.
Correct.
With the new system. So I'm in favor of trust your judgment on that.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Okay, all right, thank you. Paul, any other further information? Okay. You're all out of words. You said it all. Becca, anything from the clerk's office?
No.
Shauna?
Yes, I do have 2 additional items that were not in my report, both related to the county planning board. I sit as the town representative on the county planning board. I have moved into the city of Canandaigua. I bought a house there, so the town board will need to decide if I can sit as the town's representative. The bylaws say that I just have to be an Ontario County resident and know something about planning, the objectives of the county planning board. So that's number one. And secondly, the county is looking to county planning board members to sit on various steering committees. I would like to sit as our representative on the housing study steering committee because I feel it's probably spearheaded by us, you know, when it's infancy, and it would be good for me to be represented.
So I would add with that, I did receive the letter from the county, from the county explaining that and asking if we could find it in our judgment to keep you on there. They don't want to, by no means do they want to see you go, so I would fully support. It's not on the agenda at this time, but I think looking for consensus, we'd have to continue, you're already appointed on there, just continue with that, so the town would support that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
So you're doing a great job and you're a great representative, so careful what you ask for,
Right,
just,
another night meeting.
huh?
It's another night.
Another night meeting.
It's fine. It's good. I actually enjoy this board, that board a lot.
As opposed to.
And you enjoy this board too, you
Yeah.
started to say I enjoyed this board and that board a lot,
Right, exactly.
yeah, that's what I heard.
Yeah.
All right, anything else?
No, I have nothing additional.
Okay, thank you very much. Town manager.
Just one quick thing, Sarah Reynolds had sent an email about a meeting with the town president board.
Yes.
Honestly, I didn't know if she had talked to you guys or not while I was gone or not. I was a little bit surprised by it, but I think they were trying to set up the water meeting.
We had discussed that. She was waiting to hear back from them. And I had not gotten any update as far as whether or not she had set a date. Do you have more information?
I'm assuming by the email she sent out today that it's gonna be next Monday at 6 o'clock in this room, as long as. everybody's okay with it. But that's why I'm bringing it up. to
No, thank you.
So-
Let me,
Can't make it.
Didn't know that.
let's take a moment to check technology. Monday, the 28th.
I can't make it.
No,
I can.
I am available. Can you make it, Terry?
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got three, and
That's fine.
Dave and John, you're invited as well, if you want to get your feet wet on that one, too.
Oh, you should.
Literally, literally. What time?
Good fun.
6 o'clock? Monday here.
Yeah.
Just checking to see if you're listening, Terry.
28th.
Okay, thank you. I do not have anything, the only thing additional, I just did want to give a short little shout out to the young Eddie Rudolph, who received an award, basically the equivalent of being an All-American, a music All-American. So she'll be going to Nashville, no, not Nashville, where? Cincinnati, North Nashville, of the Midwest, to compete and to perform. When is that?
In February.
So, and this was the second one, probably in the last 15 years that Canandaigua has had, 15 or 20 years.
ECDA.
The ECDA, ACDA, I can't even get the acronym, but it's a big deal, and congratulations on that. Okay, finance, Karen, do you have any, I don't have anything to add for finance. Karen, do you have anything?
No, I do not.
Okay. Terry, do you have anything else to add?
Just it's something we have to decide. I think there's a resolution tonight to separate the ARPA money into two different pots, one for County Road 28 sewer and the other one kind of a general catch-all type thing. We have talked at the Planning and Public Works Committee meeting about a problem we have with a culvert on Seneca Point Road. Actually, I think
There's two.
one of them is, the amount we have left would put a huge dent in the cost of replacing it. We're going to have to do it sooner or later, using that money or using money from some other source here. It's easily what, in the 300K area or something like that.
Yes.
So at some point, we do have to decide what we're going to do with that money. I think it does have to be reported on occasionally. So that's it.
Okay, all right, thank you. Let's see, sorry, I jumped ahead of myself. Ordinance, man, too many bright lines on this thing. John, anything from ordinance? No. All right. UCB.
Nothing at this time.
Shauna, anything CIC?
Not at this time, thank you.
Cemetery committee, Karen?
Nothing new.
Affordable housing and transportation, Karen?
I do have a report. And I'm going to the microphone.
Okay,
I am sorry.
okay, you're excused. All right, 7:10, we will excuse $400.
So good evening. The Workforce Affordable Housing Team last met on October 21st. We had an email update from Krista Bolt on the progress of the county housing inventory. And I'm going to read his email. We're moving forward with the county-wide housing assessment. We met with the consultants who are urban partners, and they did a 1.5-day tour of the county to get a lay of the land, so to speak. They've been engaged in about a month of intense document and plan review to start synthesizing some of the report. And the stakeholder groups and public outreach portion of the plan is kicking off in the next few weeks. And I haven't seen anything about that yet. We'll be working on some media releases and outreach efforts during that time to let the broader community know about the planning effort and how they can participate or provide insight. So it was nice of him to give us an update. We also had a brief update from Doug Finch about the Edgemere Uptown project. Part of the meeting was chaired by Matt Horn, who gave us information about rentals in the town of Canandaigua, along with charts prepared by MRB. This all led to a discussion about rent stabilization. However, after much discussion, we realized that New York State rent stabilization law applies only to units built prior to 1973. So it's not applicable in our community. And this was prompted because of some exorbitant rent increases in some of the rental units in the town. The final portion of the meeting was a compelling presentation by Brenda Spratt, the Executive Director of Family Promise. She gave us an overview of the history and current activities of Family Promise. Included in her presentation were instances of discrimination in the rental processes taking place in our own community. Family Promise currently has a waiting list of over 20 families in need of 2+ bedroom affordable apartments and homes. They are taking these discrimination instances to the proper authorities and see if they can be reviewed and reconciled. Since that meeting, I met for about an hour via Zoom with Stephanie Benson, Senior VP of Real Estate Development for Edgemere Development. In preparation for their competition for tax credits, she needed information about the affordable housing markets we'll be addressing. This does not include seniors or the homeless. So we discussed people rehabbing from addiction, abused women and their families, the disabled, and some others. And I ended up sharing the appropriate part of my list of contacts with her so she could go straight to the horse's mouth for further information. And she did contact some of these people to get additional information. Our next meeting is December 16th, and I will continue to do an update each time we have a meeting.
Thank you very much.
And I'm taking my privilege of the floor real quickly. It's really important that you guys speak to the front, because the minute you turn your head to talk to each other, the microphones don't pick you up.
Thank you. All right, that was the lead in to our little preview of the privilege of the floor. Takes us to our next one. Is there anyone else who would like to be heard at this time? Rocco.
Yeah, I don't know if this is the time, but Rebecca told me I might be able to talk now.
Is it regarding
the MUO?
Go ahead.
So I have an MUO that I put forward probably 2 months ago. It got bounced around and I got beat up pretty bad last month at the planning board. In fact, they gave me a very negative review. So I'm not sure where I stand, but I think tonight we're not voting on creating the MUO or let me have the MUO. We're going to ask for more information. Is that correct?
My intent when we get to that I would like to have discussion on it, but and get any new information that we have, and my intent is
So
to
one of the
table
things,
it to next month.
one of the things that was alarming to me is that they asked for information. I gave it to them. And then there was a meeting of the finance committee, and it got out to me that the drawing that I gave them, in which they indicated that they didn't have any information on the whole project, I had given to them, quite a bit of time before their previous meeting. So I'm a little confused of why they gave me such a negative declaration. And then on the other hand, I'm concerned that why would the town spend all that money a few years ago to do this big study, create the MUO, and then I follow it to a T, and then I get beat up so bad. I'm concerned about that. I hope the town board will look at that and give me an opportunity to respond a little bit better. One of the things that came out of that meeting, and we had quite a discussion on it, was, just because we're building new homes isn't good for the community, because it costs, for every dollar you spend, it costs more to give the service. Well, that's not true. That's an old cliche. Somebody used it in a meeting one time. The real thing is, if you want to have a community that's progressive like Canandaigua, or do you want a community like Prattsburg? Prattsburg doesn't have no new subdivisions, and they don't have a big tax base. So it's not true that it costs you more. The fact you're carrying the burden already and you add some more, you're getting a pretty good deal on that. So I wanted to add that in, and then I don't know, I probably don't need to stick around for this deliberation, do I?
I know Shauna has information. We'll have information that we'll be sharing. We'll have questions. It's up to you.
Well, if you're gonna have questions, I think I'll stick around.
And I will open it. I can always open it up to board members if they have any questions at that time.
And then another thing I want to say is that I have given, since I've owned the property 2 years, Doug and I have worked hard. And Doug has been an incredible help to me on this. In terms of trying to market it to a region, what's the name of that?
And that is time.
Okay.
So 3 minutes, but might come back to it later. There will be another privilege later on. Anyone else like to be heard at this time? All right. Okay, so we'll now move to our resolutions and motions. We don't have any continuing resolutions. All right, so you two need to be on your game, because you can alternate or decide however you want to do this. But there's nobody else to look to. All right, resolution 261, acceptance of monthly financial reports.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
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 Carries. Resolution 262, acknowledgement and authorization of budget transfers by the town manager.
I'll move that.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Carries. Resolution 263, authorizing budget adjustment for the highway fund.
So moved.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Carries. Resolution 264, authorizing the highway fund reimbursement for services provided to Canandaigua Consolidated Water District.
I'll offer that.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Carries. Resolution 265, authorizing Canandaigua Consolidated Water District Fund budget adjustment.
So moved.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Carries. Resolution 266, authorizing town manager to close the cybersecurity capital project.
I'll move that.
Second.
Okay, one point that I'd like to make, we did have a positive balance of $10,662, which does go into the general fund. And it's always good when projects close with money in them still. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Carries. Resolution 267, assigning authorized project groups for the use of the ARPA funds.
So moved.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Just one question. This $409,000. Could that money from that be used for that Seneca Road project? Second Point Road?
The category that it's under there, respond to public health emergencies and economic impacts is very broad and includes the use of monies for CWSRF projects. Essentially, yes.
Okay. It does say safety underneath it, so subcategory. So that is not a safe.
Yeah, so the CWSRF projects actually specifically stormwater management is part of it.
So that answers the question that you had on that, and that we will need more discussion as time goes on, but at least that gets it into those categories. In time, any other questions or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Carries. 268, unpaid water sewer bills for re-levy to the 2023 town and county tax bills.
I'll move that.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Carries. 269, authorizing Canandaigua National Bank and Trust to act as agent for the town of Canandaigua to accept 2023 town and county tax payments.
So moved.
A second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Carries. Resolution 270, approval of credit card payment contract for debit and credit card payments for tax collection beginning January 1st, 2023 with Express Pay.
I'll move that.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Would add, this does put us in line with the county and there's no charge, any chargebacks are paid to the end user and there's no cost to the town for this. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Carries. Resolution 271, authorization for the town manager to execute agreement for independent audit services for the town court, town clerk, and regulatory audit of the town of Canandaigua.
So moved.
We have to,
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah,
Second.
going.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Yeah.
We do have
we have to designate.
We do have to designate, and I don't have my cheat sheet in front of me. Yes, would you help me? Because I did not
So
bring
the
those down.
first blank based on our finance committee meeting, we have two proposals, one from the FPR solution and one from Lumsden McCormick. So
Lumsden
filling
McCormick.
in the blanks, it would be Lumsden McCormick dated 10/27/22, an amount not to exceed $2,500, the other blank, for auditing services for town clerk and $2,500 for auditing services for town justice, for a total amount not to exceed $22,500.
And the reason that we had to go forward with that RFP is the firm we had been using for our accounting, they decided not to continue with us, so we had to look at other sources for that. Okay, any other questions on that? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Carries. 272, authorize the purchase of generator for the fire station number 2.
I'll
And this
move
is the
that.
one that we are gonna, we don't have to open it either. This is the one that we are gonna table indefinitely.
Do you need to bring it? You're just tabling it before we motion.
We need to bring it up. I think we need to motion, open it and then table it.
Laying it
Vote
over or table
vote to
it?
table it indefinitely because we do need a vote
Yeah.
for
We
that.
made a motion to table it up.
Okay, so with that motion, all in favor?
You need a second. Barry, you got a second in there?
You need to second it.
Oh,
I motioned it. Jerry, you second it?
he said all in favor, so I
Okay. Sorry, I jumped the gun.
second and an aye.
All right, second and an aye from Terry, an aye from Karen, and an aye from Jared.
Aye.
All right, and this is, this is an emergency repair because as it is right now, if the power goes out in fire station number 2 and the fire trucks are in there, and there's only one person there, they can't open the doors, so they are given permission from the fire chief to drive through the doors to get out if they need to get to an emergency. So in that regard, this is considered an emergency repair. All right, 273, secret determination of non-significance and adoption of a local law to amend the town code, Chapter 220-33 incentive zoning.
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, and that's local law 9, Rebecca? All right. Resolution number 274, seeker determination of non-significance and adoption of a local law to amend the town code. Chapter 220-33.1, the scenic view shed overlay.
I'll move that.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And that local law number 10. Okay. Resolution number 275, the authorization for the town manager to execute intermunicipal agreement with Ontario County for law enforcement services.
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Carries. Resolution 276, authorization for the town manager to execute an intermunicipal agreement with Ontario County for court services. Court security services.
I'll move that.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Carries. What's that?
Just a typo. That's a typo.
Oh, 277. 277, authorization. See, now you're getting me off my game. For the town manager to execute.
Yes.
Yeah, that one. No, you can see you got ahead of me.
To
To execute the 2023 agreement between the town of Canandaigua and the Ontario County Historical Society.
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Other than changing executive to execute? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Carries. Okay, resolution 220-278. This is coming forward as an amended resolution to 2022-278A. So do we need to do anything with 278, table 278? Or just move on from that?
Just make a motion to adopt 278.
So we'll adopt 278A instead of 278, acknowledgement and referral of the final site plan associated with CPN 22-062 Edgemere Development on Parkside Drive.
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? I do know there was some discussion and during their presentation, discussion on the windows and the transparency there. And I thought they did a very good job explaining why they needed the variance for safety and affordability of their structure. That was one of the main questions brought up. Any other comment? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 278A carries. Resolution 279, directing the town manager to draft a local law to amend the official zoning map.
I'll move that.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Yeah.
This is the one now. Shauna, you had some information. I know we had some discussion about some questions on this. Any board members have any questions? And Rocco, this would be a time if there are any questions from the board. I'll give you the floor to explain and answer any questions.
What we're
about it.
asking for right now is permission to create these 5 and this up to the gas line. So it's about 20 lots. This is the industrial parcel that I own. Across here, we've created these 4 lots already, they're industrial, they're sold. But what we want to do is go into this area, which is residential now. Okay, and we want to just create a road that goes through and comes out, cul-de-sacs here, maybe cul-de-sacs here. This may become all conservation land, and this also. We're having trouble getting sewer out of here. We can't get a pump station, and now we don't want a pump station, and blah, blah, blah. So this particular property is in fact industrial along here out to there and back. But it's very limited, it's very narrow, as you can see, and it doesn't meet many industrial uses. And the fact that we did have a couple potential buyers, and Doug can verify this, but the water failed, the electric failed, they just don't have, and I know they're working on it, but why would we spend millions of dollars for a 44-acre parcel? It doesn't make sense to me. So my idea is to create this residential corridor. We're staying away from the airport, we're creating conservation lands that adjoin that. We think it's a good plan, we'd like to move forward. And we're just kind of stymied right now, and I wasn't real happy with the planning board, the letter they sent. So.
Any board members have any questions?
Reading through this whole package here, dealing with this, seems that there were questions that were asked that in terms of justification for the project that were never answered. And you know more about it than I do. And
So I feel comfortable explaining.
Just want to go to the mic.
Oh,
Yeah.
Doug, could you put up the first plan? Just the, okay, great. So this is the plan that, sorry,
Yeah.
can I hold this and walk around?
Yeah, you can walk.
All right,
Greg couldn't handle it, but I think you can handle it.
All right,
There you
so
go.
this was the original application that came to the town board. Where the town board said to the planning board, please review and give us an advisory report. The planning board reviewed with input from myself, and you have that advisory report. You also have my report. One of the things we asked Rocco was to provide us with the bigger conceptual plan that you saw, because this is just a part of a larger, as you saw, a larger conceptual plan. So it's impossible to rezone a part of a parcel without looking at the bigger picture. And at this point, Doug, can you show the bigger plan, please? At this point, Rocco doesn't own these pieces up here. So
I have development agreements on it for 5 years, so I can purchase it at any time.
okay, I'm just saying, so if we were to move forward, if you were to move forward as a board and say, yes, let's rezone it, we need an amended application that has the consent from all of the property owners. And just to reiterate that we did ask the applicant to submit more substantial justification and how this meets the intent of both the Uptown plan as well as the comp plan, the 2021 comp plan or 2020 comp plan.
and that information wasn't that provided, or
The planning board determined that it wasn't substantial enough for them to give you an opinion either way. They didn't have enough information.
So with this, so in your opinion, Shauna, coming back on this, if we had the commitment from the other parcel owners, would that make a difference?
I think, well, I mean, legally, yes, but I think that again, the onus is on the applicant to prove why we need to get rid of 44 acres of industrial and turn it into another use.
right?
Yep.
Which other industrial acreage do we have?
Not much. Not much.
So going back, they wanted me to make this plan. I made this plan, I sent it to them. And I control all of this. At any given time, I could write a check and buy the rest of it. I own 50% of it. I got a 5-year development agreement. The person, Terry Dukowski, who's my partner with this fire development agreement, you'd be willing to sign whatever you want to sign. But my point is, I don't want to rezone all of it because this is already residential. I rezone that. The only one thing I want to rezone is this piece. And if you want me to do a plan for that, fine, I can do a plan for that. But all I really want to do right now is this phase. So my point is, they want me to write a letter, but it's a very short letter. The letter says, this property's been on the market for 25 years. Just say, I come along and bought it because you created the opportunity for MUO to do residential. I saw an opportunity to combine these two pieces and create quite a nice neighborhood. Okay, having said that, the whole discussion comes up about losing industrial land. We've tried to sell that for 25 years as industrial. The only thing that came about was a school board 15, 20 years ago. Now, the bus station. Having said that, the utilities are not up to snuff. It's 44 acres and it's not configured properly for any, in order for this to be a viable commercial industrial parcel, it needs to be more rectangular. It doesn't need to be this long, narrow, T-shaped property. So I think that, and I can try to come up with a better letter if that's all that's lacking. I can certainly get my partner, Terry Dukowski, on the rest of the land to sign the form. I just don't know where to go from here. I'm confused that I submit information, but it doesn't come back to you guys. I don't know why that is.
So what I think to help clarify with this, because I don't see us, I don't see us taking a vote on this tonight because of more information on that.
Correct.
I know that I was in speaking with Councilwoman Rudolph. She was concerned about the loss of industrial land and she didn't want me to express that point. Speaking from my own personal opinion at this time, I do complement the family homes, which I think is a void and something lacking in our development growth of single family homes within the town. So that's something that I do appreciate with this. I think there is more that is needed to kind of tighten things up a little bit. As far as the letters, as far as what can, because the part of the parcel can't be rezoned, so then there might need to be discussion about what step, how to make that so that can happen, or parts of it can.
Not to interrupt you, but that's all MUO, so that's R130, that can be rezoned to a denser application. But the way I've laid this out is I've used the MUO on the industrial, but then I've used a conservation subdivision up on the north end,
Right.
in R130. And then another issue that I would put out in this letter that I'm gonna write is that the neighbors up there certainly wouldn't want this to be industrial. They'd rather see it, because there's already residential on in that block.
So I will, right now, I'm going to defer to Chris and Doug. Doug with insight as far as the zoning, having a better grasp on that than I do.
So the big thing is currently there are 3 parcels here. Okay, as Rocco was trying to tell you, there's currently 3 parcels. One is on industrial and 2 are either R120 or R130. So, but one of the things that you are missing as a town board to be able to make a decision in addition to the advisory opinion of the planning board is a zoning law determination for the overall whole project. You need that so that the zoning officer can review everything and provide a zoning law determination that you can then look at and see if all of the boxes have been checked or not. You don't have that today. What the zoning officer needs to complete that is a complete application of all 3 parcels. Even if the future parcels are in other phases. That's some of the stuff that the zoning officer and Shauna and Rocco, they've got to sit down, and Chris and I were just saying, we're happy to sit down with you and talk to you. They need to sit down and work through some of those issues before this can come back to you. You're just still missing.
Right, and yeah, and I think we're kind of getting past into the nebulous part of things and what it's going to be and where we're going with it. So how long are we looking at for a determination? Because then once the determination is done, we can then get it and then we can make our decision, sending it to the planning board for their next steps.
Right.
It depends on, well, the applicant and stuff, right? But if you were to lay this over to your December meeting tonight, as long as
Is that
the
enough time?
promises, the applicant works expeditiously, there should be no reason why we can't have her. information.
Does that give you enough time, December
Yeah, I mean,
21st?
I'll go to work on it right away, but here's my thing. You have an application. I filled it out. I submitted it. I went to the planning board. And now we're saying that it's insufficient. Well, why did it even get to the planning board if it was insufficient? So I'm confused as to what my next step
Right.
is. I have no idea.
And I think with this, if we lay it over to the next meeting, that gives you time to have that meeting with development, with town manager, to at least lay out those next steps, and then within that next month, get those done. To add that clarification.
So my next step is sit down with Sean, figure out what I have to do. Go back to the planning board, is that correct, in December?
No, it would come, there's not enough time to get it there. It comes back to us, and then with that information, so that would be added onto, so this resolution would be continued. Or it would be amended, it would be continued, and then we could receive an amended resolution where we could vote to reject, we could not approve how it sits right now. Then we could receive an amended resolution with the updated information, then we could vote and act on that to then send it to the next step. So you don't need to go back to the planning board and do that. It would then come to us for that next step, right?
With that point, would it be, if you voted positive, would it be rezoned or no?
Then we would draft the local law, and then we would have a public hearing. And those would be the next steps. So you'd be looking at drafting public law, post it, public hearing. We're looking beginning of next year for that.
Can I
timeframe.
make a recommendation
Yes.
that the letter, get with Sean and figure out what you need, and then figure out what you need from the town board? And I understand there's a use designation, there's a,
Is that a meeting you can attend with me and Sean, or?
I may be able to have Sean,
I think that'd be good.
Well, we also
but-
need Jean there because it's an application to the town board.
I'll be bringing my attorney, so it would be.
all right, well then, we can discuss that. We can discuss that.
Another thing,
I'll have Don call you, okay?
That sounds good.
All right?
what I read through
Yeah,
this,
Rocco.
this whole package, though, talked about justification. Couldn't that be addressed somehow? Since we do have a couple of plans that we've invested a lot of money in and a lot of time developing. I'm talking, Rocco, wait a minute. It's just like the old planning board days, right?
You always show.
And it seems that has to be addressed in some manner. Because we have two plans that we have spent a lot of time and money on that say, we want that to be industrial. But there has to be some justification to make that change. What is that justification?
So I would add that.
Can I interrupt Terry for a second?
So I would, yeah,
Where do you see where the town wants to be industrial? I don't see it.
Terry answered.
Read through all this.
What?
Read through.
So
the
I would
package, Rocco.
Okay, hold on.
Town board. the
So hold
town
on.
board
Rocco. So I would add with this, so what I'm hearing is you need the justification needs to be a little stronger if you're gonna, well,
The
just hear
justification
me.
is what the town board
Okay,
voted.
so just
Town
hear me
board
out.
created this thing.
I'm trying to help you.
I know.
So the justification, in order to get enough votes to move it forward, the justification would need to be stronger as far as turning this from industrial to housing. Make it stronger, as strong as you can to make it, because you need it, however you present it, you would need to get enough votes from the board to move it back to the planning board for them to really dig into it. Okay? So I would add that and clarify it, because it sounds like that's where Terry's coming from with that. So with more justification on that, and then more explanation of the bigger picture and working with Sean and where we're gonna go with that. And then we can come back in January, at the December 21st meeting and have more information and then have that resolution. That's the best that we can,
I appreciate it.
rather than voting it down, which I don't think anybody wants right now. That gives us the chance and you the chance to have more information, answer some of the questions that were presented, make that case, even if you thought you made it as strong as you could, make it stronger, and then we can go forward.
Very good.
Okay?
Thank you, Jared. Thank you for the time.
Yep, any other?
Can I
That
go?
being said, you may want to send the plan to the two new board members who will most likely be voting on this in January.
I already sent it to John.
Discuss. if they have-
Because,
they
yeah,
have
because the
feedback
local
for you.
law, yeah, good point, because the local law would be voted on. If we vote to set the local law, that wouldn't be voted on until January, and then we'll have a new.
I'm not as concerned about the timing as doing this right.
Right, and that'll give you the chance to get that, but then also they'll be the ones who are voting.
Yep.
On that, because there'll be a new board seated.
It'll be
In
John
January.
and Dave will be on.
Dave, so I would, that's a good point by Mr. Nadler, so I would include
Okay,
to have them up to speed with what's going on.
thank you, everybody.
All right, thank you.
So I'd like to
So,
make a motion to lay it over.
Karen is making a motion to lay it over. No, I. What's that?
And just, you don't have to move to lay it over. just
Yeah.
lay it.
So you don't, we don't need to vote on
It's
it.
just laying it over.
So. Yep. Karen's laying it over till our next board
You can
meeting.
make a motion, though. I know you're.
I know I'm stuck at
You like making motions, so that would
Book
be.
says you can do it. You can say it.
December 19th.
That, no, is it the 19th or the
Yes, it
21st?
is the 19th.
Why do I keep saying 21st?
Because it is the 21st.
It's like you guys are my mind. No, it's December 19th. So.
Tell them your things.
At least somebody's in there sometimes. Okay, so now we are on to 280. All right, resolution 280, authorizing the appointment of Ryan Farini to the position motor vehicle equipment operator lights.
I'll second.
Moving second, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Carries. Resolution 281, authorizing the appointment of Jonathan Noble to the position of water maintenance assistant.
I'll move that.
Second.
Moving second, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, carries. And that takes us to the approval of the October 17th and November 1st town board meeting minutes. If we can get a motion to approve both of those.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Moving seconded, any discussion, additions, deletions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, minutes are approved. Payment of the bills, Rebecca.
Okay, utility abstract dated October 28th, 2022, totaling $47,829.86. And that is split, general fund, $32,053.05. Highway fund, $11,000.88. Lighting districts, $1,300.79. And water districts, $3,465.14. And then the town board abstract dated November 21st, 2022, totaling $641,412.35. The general fund is $245,918.64. Highway fund is $294,355.50. Capital projects, $25,779.66. Lighting districts, $1,315.76. Sanitary sewer, $18,210. And water districts, $55,832.79.
Thank you. Can I get a motion to pay the bills?
I'll second that.
Moving seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, bills are paid. Final privilege of the floor. Would anyone like to be heard this time? Oh. We've lost them. We've lost them. Almost all of them. They're all dropping out. Nobody in the house. And then there was one executive session on the agenda, but that will be moved to next month. So we do not have any executive sessions planned. Any other requests for executive sessions at this time? All right, can I get a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.